Yeah. Well, I'd like to particularly welcome our preferred seating guests. That would be Roger.
Hey, Roger.
Roger should almost sit at the desk.
See me, but
And actually, Roger, we discussed that the first 3 of the first 10 people would actually get lifetime preferred seating.
Oh, oh, wow.
So you can put that on your resume.
maybe it'll upgrade me to first class.
That's,
I feel like maybe I should run down there right now.
but you better
Too
hurry,
late.
Marion.
You don't have preferred seating now. Too late.
All right, I'm calling to order the December 1st meeting of the Economic Development Commission. And I'm sorry, I forgot, I need to, well, I'm gonna pull up the agenda in a minute. But basically, we have additions or deletions to the agenda with the minutes, citizen comments, if there are any. We're gonna go through working group updates. Not every working group may have an update. We'll go through some of the initiatives that we're working on. Not every initiative will have an update. And then there's 2 follow-up items that we'll discuss. A grant follow-up, and we'll use TEDx as an example for the kind of process that we would like to use for all of our grants. And also briefly, a brief discussion about how we handle how major grants will or will not, I hope they will, operate through the working groups rather than independently of them, since all major grants have to come in an area of priority where we do have working groups. So having said that, if Joe, you're the vice chair. Can you, while I get the document up?
I am.
Aren't you the vice chair? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, okay.
Can you take us through items 2 and 3
Where
and 4 on the agenda, which is on the second page while I get the document up? I'm sorry about that.
Sure.
It's
2 and 3. Addition or deletions to the agenda. Does anybody have any?
No, you did that wrong, Joe.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding.
Well, I just never did it before, John.
I do not.
No.
What?
No comments.
So, I guess we'll ask for a vote to accept the, agenda as is.
The minutes.
It says agenda,
Oh, it does.
just it does.
No, it says approval of minutes.
Number 2,
Oh, yes, we're accepting the agenda, so we don't need a motion.
okay. Number 3, approval of minutes from November 3rd.
Motion to approve the minutes as provided.
I second that.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes of November 3rd, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? None. Motion passed. Item 4, citizens' comments. We have 1 citizen here,
Nothing at the moment.
nothing at the moment. I would assume that maybe if members of the commission have any comments, they can probably jump in now if they like.
You're doing a good job, Joe.
I try. Thank you. I guess not. So we'll move on to old business. You want to take it from there, John? You want me to keep it up?
And because there's a couple of sequence things that I want to talk
Okay.
about, so I'll take it from here. But I just want to remind people, I just want to put this up. This is now kind of the framework and the agenda basically that we're operating under on a regular basis. It makes setting the agenda really easy. I know it looks like there are a lot of things here, but there are really 5 priorities, although we're going to talk about one of them tonight about whether we should keep it on the list. And then the programs, to some extent, support those priorities, not completely. Grant writing, community grants, basically community grants, we have a test program for grant writing support. The storefront incentive program is a direct support of the downtown rejuvenation working group. And then the business loan fund is to support businesses in any area. So anyway, just there was a reminder, it was really for people who weren't, if there were anyone who showed up who hasn't been to any of our last 30 meetings. Okay, we'll start with a working group update because Stuart has to leave with the downtown revitalization group. And Stuart, I have I'll just quickly show you, I have your charts like this on those 2 pages.
Okay, thank you, John. Why don't we start from the second page?
This one?
Yeah, and then we'll just go through. Again, our group, appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Our group is focused on projects that we might suggest that the EDC consider sponsoring and or contributing money to, which are aimed at the downtown area. We have largely defined as the sort of the business district from the rec center to perhaps over by the liquor store there when we head out of town from Billings Farm over to Vale Field. So that's sort of the square that we're talking about. We went through an exercise as a group of identifying all the different potential projects or areas that we could see that we thought of that might have an impact. And we've listed them here. We've split them up between private and public. No particular reason for that other than just trying to provide some way of analyzing them. And what these are the ones that we've looked at and sort of set aside for now. And I've tried to provide some reasons there on the notes or next steps. We think they're interesting projects. We think they're interesting and potentially impactful projects for Woodstock, but we're not sure of what our role might be right now or our ability to have an impact. So we've set those aside. I'm happy to chat about any of those if people want, or we can move on to the four that we think are the most worthy of discussion today. All right, John, why don't you scroll then to the first slide? So these are the four projects that our group has come up with that that we think are the most promising and that we're working on right now. And I'll run through the concept or the rationale behind each of them and then take any questions and we can decide on the next steps. The storefront facades project is really aimed at encouraging investment in the fronts of the buildings in the downtown area. And our concept was to have the grants writer work with property owners to apply for state support that exists for downtown storefront rejuvenation, facade rejuvenation. And perhaps the EDC could consider granting some amount of money as a sort of kicker or incentive to motivate business owners to act and to invest their money. So it would be, the concept is, getting the money that would be available from the state, and then the balance of those funds might be split in some way, some proportion between the EDC grants and what the business owner would contribute. Our feeling is that while those are helping individuals, i.e. private assets, they're also impacting the town because the impact, the visual impact in downtown would be significant. The Woodstock Aqueduct project there is probably the most significant project on our list. It's a complicated and long story, but the short version is that as a private utility, the Woodstock Aqueduct Company is regulated by the state, and as a result, the rates that it charges are such that the business is essentially marginally profitable. That varies over time depending on demand, the use of water, and also the amount of projects that need to be addressed, meaning pipes that rupture, that kind of thing. The challenge is the system needs upgrades and improvements, and we're getting to the point where there's a limited amount of growth that the system can handle and where it can handle it. And so we are working with the Aqueduct Company to understand exactly what requirements there are from a system standpoint and what the cost of those improvements might be, so that we can figure out how, what sort of a role, if any, the EDC might be able to provide in that situation. Our thinking is that the next step on this would be to work with the Finance Committee to sort of review the analysis and figure out the right direction. But I think this is a project or an issue that has the ability to impact continued growth at Woodstock, and so it's something that has to get dealt with, and we think is fairly high and important on the list.
Stuart, can I just quick interruption, just
Yeah.
from Finance Committee end of things? This item on the Woodstock Aqueduct is about to be added to a list which will be public as part of the budget process, which says these are the big items that, you know, that the town might need to invest in. You know, along with things like fixing bridges and culverts and so forth.
Yeah.
And they're going to say that the cost of that is about $800,000 to, you know, so that information is going to become public. And I know that there's next week. So
Yeah,
I don't know that anyone will pay attention to it. I just wanted to let people know.
I
that
don't know. I can't speak to that number at this point. That 800,000 may or may not be right. There's a series of projects that need to be addressed. Some of them are regulatory based, meaning the state is putting pressure on the company to make certain investments. Some are what I would call capacity expansion, which will be needed in order to facilitate growth, for example, at the east end of town. So there's a series of those projects, and that's what we're working on right now.
Yeah, and my only point is just that if this project were pursued, it's just 2 points. A, it's a big number, and B, it's something that the town has on its radar. And so if the question of EDC involvement is, there's also a question of town involvement, and sort of sorting all that out will be part of the effort.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm just raising the issue. How it gets handled is a different issue.
John, can I ask a question about that just briefly?
Why don't let him go through and then we'll ask questions. And, you know, but in the meantime, come and take a microphone and put it on your chair.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Okay, the trees and sidewalks project, we recognize that Woodstock is is a tourist-based economy, and we rely on visitors for a significant portion of our business activity. And the idea here is that the trees that populate the town, you know, they're on the sidewalks, they're around the green, they're along the roads and other places, are an asset. And our proposal is to do an inventory of that asset, of the trees, quantify the health and the condition that those trees are in, identify where there are opportunities to either gaps, for example, in the downtown area, where the trees have died and been removed and just the dirt is left, and generally develop a longer term program to work on the health of the trees around the town, such that we're not in a position where, you know, all of our trees are a similar age, which means they're all likely to die at the same time. And what we want to do is get ahead of it and start just working on a regular basis so that we can have a program that will allow for the continued health of the trees, which we think are critical, or an essential part, I should say, of the visual appeal of the town. I've spoken to Don Wheeler, who is the tree warden for Woodstock. He thinks this is a great idea. Apparently Woodstock had a sort of a tree master plan at some point in the past. It's out of date, and thinks it would be quite valuable to upgrade that, to update that. As a note, the budget in the town provides $20,000 a year for tree care. And if you think about the number of trees and the scope that they're trying to do, that is a pretty modest amount. And he said it basically allows them to triage. They tackle the most pressing issues, but don't have the resources to undertake a comprehensive program along that. Where the sidewalks come in, if you're in the downtown area, there's a number of areas where the trees have outgrown the plantings and they're pushing the sidewalks up. What you have to do there is sort of pull the sidewalk up, dig it out, and you know, make the ground and the tree and the hole and all that sort of consistent so that the sidewalk can be steady. That is also, just as a note, sort of related to the aqueduct work, because there is some work that would involve excavation, in which case you might put it under the sidewalks instead of under the roads. That's when you're trying to upgrade the pipe size. So all of these things have to be taken into account together, but we need a master plan to be able to understand the scope of the work that we're facing. The last project that we've identified is the parking lot over on Elm Street, which is sort of behind the History Center. Parking is a real problem in town. Everybody knows that. And there may be an opportunity there if we could work. And I have not spoken to the Woodstock Historical Society, so this is maybe the first time that they're hearing of this. But the question is whether there's some opportunity to optimize that parking area behind the Historical Society. If we could do so, adding parking there might free up some spaces in other parts of town, such as Mechanic Street, for additional development. But the first step would be trying to figure out if we could find a way to get more cars into that one lot. So those are the 4 projects that we felt had that were worth focusing on initially, and I'm happy to take any questions on any of those.
Okay, Mika and then Roger.
Thank you. Just as a note, the fact that you said triage the trees just cracked me up.
I was trying to compete with Joe and the Joe and John show. So
It's such a silly joke. Okay, so 2 questions. Could you go to the first screen again?
Yeah.
What was I wondering about? Oh, Vale Field. Just as my own 2 cents, I think actually some kind of cooking kitchen situation at Vale Field is a great idea, because I think that would help small school-based, normally, I think nonprofits create more fundraisers for themselves. If they could, if they could cook there, then I think that would be an asset to the community. So that's just my 2 cents.
thank you.
On the next screen, you talked about the aqueduct, and I had similar questions related to what John was saying about whether or not that's the town's responsibility. And I'd be curious, when you're speaking with the finance committee, if it would be possible to estimate if a bond were to be taken out to do that work, how many, is it a $1,000 increase to everybody's taxes? It is a $5 increase to everybody's taxes? What does that actually look like? And kind of break it down like that. I think that would be really pertinent information.
Yep, and to be clear, we are working on that right now.
Awesome. I feel like, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. And then the next question was, I could be wrong, but I am under the impression that the parking lot there behind the History Center actually belongs to,
Yes.
Say again, John?
It belongs to the History Center, but yeah,
Oh, it does? I thought it belonged to Gillingham's, no?
no, it belongs to the History Center, but there have been discussions about it. It's complicated, but there have been discussions about making more spaces available. They've just stalled. So I think this group would like to resuscitate them, I think, if that's right, Stuart. Or
That's
try.
correct. I mean, it's been a long-standing issue, and so we're just trying to tackle it head on.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Roger, then Jeff, then Todd.
On the parking lot issue, real quick, I know that Brenda from the village board was talking, so somebody should touch base with her, because she had some kind of potential program going on. I don't remember or know what the status is. I'm going to sound like a broken record on this, but on the storefront facades, I think it's great to help people apply for money or look for funds that are available. But as a taxpayer, I'm highly opposed to giving people money to maintain their building in a way their building should be maintained by them to do their business. But I'm one person. On the aqueduct, I'm just curious, and this may not be the place to get into, but that's a private corporation, right?
Correct.
So what would it look like if Woodstock was putting money into it?
I think it's premature. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, if it,
Stuart, go ahead.
My answer, I think it's early for us to say. We're not exactly sure exactly how we do it. We're very cognizant of the issue of using taxpayer dollars for private, property, be they the storefronts or the aqueduct. Really, what we're trying to highlight here is our focus is investments that are needed to support the downtown and the business vitality of the community. And we see the Woodstock Aqueduct need as being significant. A significant issue relative to the vitality and the ongoing economic vitality of the community. So we're raising it, but we're very cognizant of the issue that is posed by public money being put into private situations.
no, I absolutely agree. It makes perfect sense. It's a huge piece of municipal infrastructure. It's just, I don't know what it looks like. And I don't know if Woodstock as a town has the capacity to take that on.
Oh,
That's-
and we're working on that. We agree.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Todd and then Jeff. Oh, sorry, Jeff and then, no, how did Jeff get ahead of Todd? Todd and then Jeff.
Thanks. Stuart, this is awesome. I think, like, for me, I just think in same terms of the facades, I can, see it both sides of that, and the trees and sidewalks and the Elm Street parking and Alstom's property and all that. But when it comes to the aqueduct thing, I just want to put my 2 cents in that. I mean, they're really nice people that run it. They do the best they can. It's a long, obviously we know the family who runs it. It's a long history of Woodstock, but most towns like municipal water, municipal gas, municipal power, obviously we don't have that. It's a lot of sort of patch road railway work, coming in from old and new. And I feel like we have $100 million school we need to build, we have a $25 million sewage issue, and we have the water supply issue, which I just dealt with and is a huge problem. I'm glad it's being highlighted, but this is part of a probably $200 million town issue in a 30-year plan that has to start like yesterday, as lots of us on this probably Zoom call and in person know. So even Mika talking about what it hits the taxpayers, like the taxpayers of Woodstock are going to be hit with enormous gains, or we won't have water, or we won't have sewage, or we won't have a school that's not 70 years old. So it's just sort of like, for me and what the EDC looks to doing, I think that the other areas are something I really can get behind. But I think, again, just to be clear, the aqueduct work, I wouldn't personally support. I can't imagine personally supporting any of EDC money toward that, because I think that's a major town issue that probably requires funding that has to come from sources well beyond our means. So that's just my 2 cents on that. But this is all really, really helpful stuff. And aqueduct aside, I appreciate your work on it.
Well, Todd, all I would say, I appreciate those remarks. All I would say is, let's not prejudge all we're doing is highlighting the issue. We have not come to a point that we really understand yet a proposed solution, and that obviously would come back to the EDC for review. So all I'm trying to do is highlight where we stand.
Well, I'd put sewer on it too, then, because if people can't flush their toilets, we'll be in a lot of economic issue as well.
Well, the sewer is owned by, yeah, fair point. They're somewhat integrated. But I appreciate your thoughts and comments.
Jeffrey?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to say a few things in there. First of all, storefront facades. The most critical one there is what most of us still call the Bentley's building, which is horrendous. And it's such a cornerstone, important building in the downtown. The current owner is not going to do anything to fix it. I've tried talking to him more than once about it. He's got his other problems. However, if one approach that might work would be to say that we'll provide some funds to fix that, funds that are returnable upon the sale of that building, that would come back to the EDC. Just an idea that he might go for. But he's not likely to put up much of any money, unfortunately. But Stuart, good luck with that. I think it's important. On a couple of other issues, trees and sidewalks. I'd love to have a conversation with you from the standpoint of the village of Woodstock, not the town of Woodstock. And by the way, the $20,000 is a figure that's just coming from the village. We are 2 municipalities. And that money was actually increased to pay for the emerald ash borer inoculations, which happen to happen every 2 years. Don Wheeler probably told you about that. Next year, we won't have to do it, but there's plenty of other work that could be done. So I love that this is on that scope, because we cannot increase the amount that's going into the village budget, unfortunately. The parking lot on Elm Street, we tried to buy that from we being the village of Woodstock, and we tried to lease it and or purchase it. And it did not work out. It's very difficult to work with that board to let that go. They were sort of in a place of, well, this is not what Mr. Rockefeller would have wanted. He gave this to us. But that could change. But I agree, boy, that's so underutilized, and it would be great if more could be done with that. By the way, as far as the Rockefeller land adjoining the East End Park, we currently have we being the village of Woodstock, a grant program that we're first in line of for the state to purchase that land. through a grant that's tied to the South Woodstock sewer project, believe it or not. And it's called the Whispers Grants. And that's likely to come through this spring, we're hoping. And so we'd be happy to talk to you about that. And we've already talked to Ben Jervy, who owns property adjoining that, who wants to develop his property and see how we could work together. So we could love to talk to you about that. And anyway, that's just some input from a village trustee on some of the things that you're looking into. Why don't you give me a call when you have a chance and we can go over it in a little more detail.
That'd be great. I appreciate that.
Sure. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? No. No, all right. Stuart, you are.
But just to summarize, what we would do is continue to work on these, and really, I guess, well, or unless you guys are ready, whenever you're ready to give us sort of some guidance, our plan is to continue to work on these and come to you in January with sort of more fleshed out proposals on what the next steps might be, and really would look for the EDC to give us guidance on which projects, if any, you would like us to continue to work on.
I think it sounds, Stuart, as if kind of as if, you know, answering the kinds of questions that were raised here would before, we probably wouldn't be in a position to do that until, like, so for example, on the aqueduct thing, I don't know when you'll be ready. That's a complicated issue. So I wouldn't come back to us on that until you have something, you know.
Correct.
I wouldn't knock any, based on the feedback, and Roger, your comment notwithstanding, because we're not making a funding decision here, I would continue to investigate all these priorities. I didn't hear anything to the contrary. Is that a fair assessment of the group, or? Yeah, I mean.
I appreciate that support. Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to work on these, and we look forward to coming back to you.
Yeah. All right, sounds good.
I have one quick question on the storefront issue. I thought the idea of money coming back from the Bentley's building, but is there not something that the village can do? Create an ordinance or something? I mean, clearly it's dangerous, and there must be something that someone can force this gentleman's hand, you know, or keep finding him, or I don't know, something.
The most effective way to address
Wait,
this issue
say it
is
loud.
legislate.
Well, there is an ordinance. There was an ordinance written for exactly that purpose, but let's let that group dive
That's
in.
not unfortunately, that's sort of that's beyond our pay grade.
Yeah.
We have talked about a tax, what was it called? You know, basically a tax again for repairs that were not done. What's that called?
Assessment. Fine.
Assessment. I mean,
No. We've talked about basically, you know, penalizing people essentially for not doing the work.
I think there's a lot of ways to approach that problem. We as a working group focusing on investing in downtown really don't have the ability to make that decision. That's a decision made by you all or you know, town government.
But just to be aware, though, there is an ordinance that was written for precisely this building, for precisely this purpose. It's already on the books.
Just never enforced.
It's not being enforced.
That's right.
And so, and it's, yeah. So Stuart, let me just share. So we don't, obviously the EDC doesn't pass legislation, and it sounds like maybe the working group doesn't want to get involved.
And Jeff has his hand up too.
That's not true.
All right, so Jeff first and then Joe.
Well, I'm just going to quick comment. That's not accurate to say that we don't want to get involved with that.
Well, I wouldn't saying the work.
I wouldn't think that the working group would not want to get involved with that. It's been suggested right from the outset that one of the ways to address the conditions of the building downtown, one of the ways to address that would be legislatively. We
That's
did
correct.
discuss that. Now, we cannot pass laws. You're right, Stuart, but we can make suggestions and we can propose certain ideas to the people who do pass laws.
I mean, I would think that our position is that all regulations on the books should be enforced. I mean, that's just a broad general statement that I think everybody would agree with. What we're suggesting is we're trying to, so that exists. Now that's an enforcement question. What we're trying to do is create an incentive. So there's both, you know, there's two sides to it.
A stick and a carrot.
Jeffrey, did you want to last comment?
Yeah, am I still? Oh yeah, you can hear me. Yeah, because I'm about to leave for another Zoom meeting. Yeah, this is interesting. I'm going to put this on our agenda to look into what further steps we can take to enforce. We did send a health officer there who stopped them from painting over the lead paint they had without removing it. And so that didn't happen. But let's look at, we will look into this. And I'm going to put it on our agenda for the trustees to look into what we can do ordinance wise to push that, at the same time holding out the carrot of finances that can be paid back to the EDC at some point. This might be an attractive thing at the same time to pursue. But yeah, we're going to look into
Let me
it.
comment on that. Can I comment
Okay,
on that?
Yeah, last comment.
Member of my family is a very successful corporate lawyer. He looked at that ordinance. The catchwords seem to be a hazard or in danger to the public. That's where I think the ordinance has to be looked at. Because as it stands right now, unless something falls off that building and bangs somebody in the head, there's really, the ordinance cannot be enforced as it stands. Now, it does not mean that that ordinance can't be changed, adjusted, modified to fit what we want to have happen then. That can happen. Now, I would think that a way to approach that is to get a clear cut of that, clear look at that ordinance. Maybe if the EDC wants to come up with some money to pay a lawyer to advise us and discuss what we want to achieve and how to achieve it, that might be something we could do, and then present it to the people who do make the laws. That, I think, would be the way to approach it. Legislatively is probably going to be the only whip, if you want to use carrot and stick and all that other phraseology, that's going to move that project, because nothing else seems to be working. The owner is obviously not interested in ponying up any of his own money to do it, and there's no other source, I don't think.
Okay, all right. Well, this is, I think, let's have the working group continue these discussions, and it sounds like looping in, at least on part of this, looping in the trustees will be very helpful. So Stuart, you and Jeff have some things to talk about, or you and Doan.
Yep, I'll take care of that. Thank you very much.
Great,
Okay.
Thanks. Bye,
right.
everyone.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Stuart. Okay, the next item on the agenda is childcare. What I'm going to do, just because of the way these documents were created, is I'm just going to present 2-3 slides very, very quickly, and then I'm going to let Todd manage Todd and Mika and Larry manage the discussion. But I wrote the slides and they haven't seen them. That'll give them some breathing room of 3 or 4 minutes to hear what the way the slides together. But there's no information here, I think, that isn't. Most of this is not new information. So what we are proposing to do, just to set the context, is not to make decisions at tonight's meeting, but to get everyone on the EDC up to speed, and then to have a special meeting, hopefully in December, really ideally in December, to once you're up to speed, you'll then receive more detailed proposals than what you're going to see tonight before that meeting, and then we'll be able to have a full discussion, presentations from the applicants, and then a vote at that time. So that's where we're just informing you all about this. So, and sorry, I got this here. So we will be receiving 4 proposals from 4 different local providers. The total of those proposals, if you look down at the bottom here, is a request for $335,000 of funding. We believe that within about 12 months, that $335,000 will yield between 75 and 80 slots for childcare split approximately equally between daycare for under 3 kids and after-school care for kids of a range of ages. We have very clearly documented at least a demand for 40 spaces and possibly up to 80 spaces of need for the under 3 childcare. And we have documented a good number. I think it's harder for us to figure out, but there's ample evidence that after-school programs are needed, and Todd can speak because he's on the school board, can speak to that very directly. This is 3 times the biggest grant we've ever given. This is exactly what we said we were going to do, which is, and the child care group has done an unbelievable amount of pushing on a string in order to get the providers to do some, and then in turn, just to be fair, the providers then did some great work. And again, Todd and the committee can talk about that. The nature of these proposals is all different, but in all cases, what they're asking for is money so that they can become sustainable. These are one-time grants. They're built on a set of assumptions, but they are designed in different cases to take providers through to a place where they don't need more money. Because then when they're, and we've asked each of them, show us your economics when you're done with the growth. Show us 12 months from now, if we're giving you, in the case of Rainbow, if we're giving you $140,000 to hire, I think 5 people, show us that 12 months from now, when you've hired those people and you've got the extra 17 to 21 kids, show us that the money from those extra kids is going to pay for those new teachers going forward. And they've shown us that. And in each case, they've shown us that. So that's what we're trying to do. The only thing, all of this is not new to the committee, and Todd, you can lead the discussion about this. I just want to add that when we're done with this discussion, because this is new, because this is a new scale of operation for the EDC, we all agreed we wanted to do exactly this, but there's a couple of small things that we never talked about, and I just want to I want to agree to talk about them at our next meeting. And they are obviously, we need to have, for proposals this big, we need to have very clear written applications. We are confident we will have those. We've already posted a lot of material. Proposals from each of these groups are already on the EDC website. They're already very detailed. We just want to cross every T and every I with a written narrative and a format between now and the middle of December. In the light of the large grants, I'd like us to talk about looking at our legal agreement. We currently have a legal agreement between the EDC and grantees. It's envisions, here, Roger, here's a grant for $3,000 for fireworks. It's about that legal, right? I don't think if we're giving out $150,000 on a critical issue like this, we may need to have something a little bit more robust. And we also, I think, need to have something that's a bit more robust than what we have now with our grant oversight process, since our grant oversight process doesn't exist. And so I'd like us to prepare to talk, Todd, those are the only new things that I'm introducing into the discussion. We don't have to solve it tonight. I would be uncomfortable voting for these things until we had just some simple answers to those process questions or a commitment to solve them within a month or so. So with that, Todd, I'll turn it back to you. And the other thing I want to say is just from a financial point of view, I want to put this in context. We got some good news for the 4th quarter. That November number for 2022 came in about $10,000 higher than our optimistic estimate. So you can see that compared to our last normal year, the revenues that we will get in 2020, that we have gotten now in 2022, are $369,000. That's 24% higher than our last normal year. So there could be a recession next year, but as we think about, and we have about $475,000 in reserves. We've got a commitment implicitly to give up to $100,000 for our community grant program. So if you begin to do the math, we could fund the $335,000 2 weeks from now simply from our reserves. We would then expect $300-ish thousand in 2023. 100,000 of that is committed. We'd have 200 to 250,000 left over with the reserves of 125. So I think we can afford this, but just so you have the note, you might characterize it differently, but those are sort of
John,
the
can I-
numbers.
let me tack on something to you.
Oh, well, let me just turn it over to Todd and let him now call on people because I sort of intruded on the
Okay.
working group process. So
No,
Todd,
great.
Joe
Great,
and me,
thank-
yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Great. Thanks, John. And Joe, Mika, Larry, feel free to chime in, but let me just go over everyone's afraid and I'm not afraid, but I appreciate where John's coming from with the professionalism, where Larry's coming from. Anyone who's talked to me about this, I want to vote on this a year ago before it even existed. At our last meeting, we said when we gave the 20,000 to the preschool, there was frustration involved, and we said, we're going to work on this and we're going to fix this. So what did we do? We got together as a group and we put our heads together and we made some things potentially happen. It's not about our work though. This is about the economic development. And when I came in here, there was a question, and sometimes there still might be, and we've really honed it on what is economic development. It's an open thing. What should we be working on? What do we say to the public? What is our mission? And we spent a lot of months working on honing this in, and we came out with these amazing working groups: childcare, housing, marketing, downtown rejuvenation, and events. Some of these I haven't heard anything from, and that's okay. But what I have heard from is childcare, because I've been deeply involved with it, along with my coworkers and team members. And I want to say, I can honestly speak that these numbers, 76 to 80 children, where working families don't have a place to put their child after 2:30 potentially or earlier. The biggest need is for infants 6 weeks to up to 3 years old. A working mom or dad can't be in the workforce because no one can watch that child. Quality care. I've never seen a town rally around something like this in my entire life. I'm 44 years old. I've worked a lot. I've never seen anything like this. We got these providers who wouldn't even answer our calls because they turned out were busy looking after our children. We work with them. We identified them. As Joe and Larry and Mika and I would say in the beginning, we know nothing about childcare. Now I'm like, I know too much. I don't want to know anymore. It's too much. I gotta say that this money is exactly what we talked about. These programs are exactly what we talked about. So I say to other members, if it's not your program, I'm sorry. And I want to see it. I want to hear what the other big things are. But here we are to the table. We have something meaningful that will help residents and workers in this town with a tax paid for mostly by tourism dollars, where the people who go and serve those meals and provide that tourism revenue on the back of that labor have these children that can't afford the childcare that they need. And this gives the opportunity for them to have dignity, happiness, and health in their family in a way they don't currently have. So when you talk about the school board, of which I've been on for the last year and a half, our budget's roughly $23 million. You may not know, but the tax of every child on average, because pre-K costs more than an 8th grader, okay, is $21,000. So you want to send your kid to Deerfield Academy, it might be 30. My high school, Fairfield Prep's 35. $21,000 to go be educated in the Union, 7 towns, Woodstock included, West, anywhere. That's on average. So let's talk about what this can do economically, because I think that's the most important thing, because the number's big. It's hard to wrap your head around. It's not fireworks anymore, right? It's not benches. It's not trash cans, although I'm in favor of trash cans. We're talking about is 6 kids left. 1 family of 4, 1 of 2, 6 families that have 1. Those are people leaving the workforce, whether remote or physical, because we know remote workforce, they might not actually be contributing to a brick and mortar Woodstock position, but they may. 6 kids leave, $126,000 every year, not including increases that we lose to educate the rest of our children. Less people to help us in positions of need, restaurants, chefs, corporate jobs, everything and anything. We have a famous Instagrammer. I'm not going to get into the name, but if you look it up, famous Instagram Woodstock, the famous Instagrammer that lives here, way too many posts about how this person can't find childcare for their infant and how it's a terrible thing for their family. So we can look at the stats and statistics all day long, but they speak for themselves, in my opinion. You can ask me today, how many kids? 40. How many kids tomorrow? 80. How many kids today? It's a massive number. And I think that even though it's annoying that we can't vote right now and everyone raise their hand and say yes, I fully understand why this needs to be vetted in a way more than I'm capable or thoughtful of doing. I fully understand why everyone should have an opportunity to ask any and all questions and have time to have them properly answered and addressed. But I will say that when I ask a question of any of these providers, are you sure you can fill up this many kids? Because what if everybody's in the same waiting list? Every one of them has laughed in my face. There is no issue of duplicity here, of triple bagging. What we're seeing is a crisis, and no one's done this. No one has gotten together as a town that has the potential for spending in a discretionary way. Of course, the select board will decide. If we decide, they will ultimately decide. This is a unique position for Woodstock and the EDC to show everyone who we are, what we can do for our community, clearly show economic development, and help families and children. So instead of opining about the numbers, look at the chart, go on the website, look at the first round proposals, and I hope you'll be excited to hear the proposals from the providers, and I hope they're all wonderful. I can't say I would vote for all of them now because I haven't seen their final proposal, but I can say that this amount of money helping this amount of children is a win for not only Woodstock and the surrounding areas, but Vermonters as a totality. And I hope that other people can use this as a model to understand that government doesn't have to go slow, and we can get things done while working together and spend the people's money in an effective and productive way. Any questions? I'm right here for you.
Got a comment, not a question, but a comment.
Joe, Deborah had her hand up first, I think,
Deborah,
and then Joe.
go ahead, Deborah.
Yeah, a couple things. One thing I just wanted to note, John, you mentioned that we're committed 100K to the community fund.
I said up to. I hope I said up to.
You didn't say up to, and I just want to make sure that we're all aware it's up to. It's if it's warranted, it's committed, but it's not committed as an out the door. It could go to something else. It could go to one of these bigger things if we don't have those grants coming in.
Correct. Or we find the requests coming in, yes, it's up to.
Up to, right. So it's not committed and out. It could be a part of it. And the one thing that I would just say with this, I think it would be great for us, and we would need to, obviously, with something as big as this, do the due diligence and actually get to have the conversations with these great people. But the one thing that I would just say, Todd, is like, we're all in agreement. We don't have to, well, none of us are afraid of the big number because we've already collectively, well, we all have collectively said we're looking for bigger things. So this is the first one that's come in, and now we need to do our due diligence on it. But it's
I really suggest everyone goes to the website and checks out what they submitted already. That would be a great place for you to start and be prepared for the next meeting as well.
And let me
for the conversation. Yeah,
let me just say where that is. So it's on the EDC's website. The only place these documents are currently posted tonight. They're posted under the upcoming meeting page. Right, and they're all there. Starting tomorrow or the next day, they will be posted in the document library, which will have this meeting in it. But for right now, for the next few days, they're posted on today's meeting, basically the upcoming meeting section. Proposals from all four, as well as the document that you're seeing on the screen.
And John, another thing that I wanted to say that I would love for us to think about when we go into those meetings is for bigger projects, I think we should schedule a larger period of time for the conversations that we have with them, because it's going to take longer than the 20 minutes, to go through all of this, like we did last year. So I think.
Well, the idea is the working groups have already done all that vetting, and we had a vote to bring it to the EDC so that it should be in a position, because we're working group members, that we feel like it can be something that could be addressed and potentially voted on. So it's not coming like the other projects, the community grants, Deborah, were coming through an application form and this and that, but we spent 7 months working with them to be ready to present it in a way that we feel like it should be a successful presentation, whether it gets voted for or not. So I think that's the differential there between.
Okay,
just
I
a
don't think
regular-
you understood what I was saying then, Todd, because I agree. I understand that you've done all of that work. Though that's only part of this committee. The rest of us are going to have questions to get, even if we read the thing, to get up to speed. And I'm just saying that we want to schedule enough time so that we could hear it and vote on it and not have to say, okay, we. need
Yeah,
to
that's a
do
that's a
this
great
later.
point. That's why John will talk about the idea for what we want to do for this particular thing and maybe a template for it, and I'll let him speak on that. But I fully agree with you. Fully 100% agree.
So Todd, the other people, so if you want Todd, I'll call on people, but you can do all the answering. So Joe, then Jeff, then Larry.
I'm gonna pull a seniority card on this one. Anyway, I am the last original member of the EDC. In my opinion, this project is not probably, in my opinion, is the most important and the most beneficial to this community that has ever been addressed by this commission. And I think the people who have worked on it and have compiled this information and done the job that they've done should be commended for the job they've done. Because nothing, in my opinion, to this point anyway, can benefit the community more than this project right now. And I think you all deserve, a pat on the back and anything else. All those are accolades.
Preferred seating, right?
Preferred seating, whatever.
Jeff and then Larry. Oh, no, Jeff, his hand's down now. I think Jeff, unmute if you,
Jeff had his hand up before.
okay, fine, he's, Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not going to add too much to what Todd said so well, but some minor points just to think about, or at least they seem compelling to me. We did an original survey. We've done a couple of surveys now to determine need, but our original survey also, excuse me, asked a question for respondents. Well, we had 104, I believe, respondents. One of the questions that was asked was, is the lack of childcare in some way affecting your ability to be part of full-time or part-time in the workforce? In other words, do you have to stay home and take care of your kids instead of being in the workforce? 48 people said yes. So that's a very direct and
48 out of how many?
48 of the people who responded, out of almost half, were saying that the current problems with the availability of childcare was keeping them out of the workforce. That I think is an important thing. It also goes to another issue, which is, I think, Todd, you may remember this. We got a number of people were saying, well, you can't solve childcare if you don't solve housing, because you're just trying to bring people in saying, well, we've got great childcare. I think what the statistics show us is that is of course true. We have a housing problem, but these are people who already live here. So we're benefiting people who already live here. So housing, yes, is an issue, but I wouldn't take it as a problem that in any way inhibits what we're trying to do. Again, it's sort of, and one other thing about the statistics, you don't want to, or I don't believe you want to look at $335,000 and then see how many slots we're going to increase. The 76 to just probably so obvious a point, but the 76 slots or 80 slots is going to happen next year and the year after and the year after and the year after and the year after and the year after, etc. So it isn't divide 80 into 335,000. It's divide, an infinite number into 335,000. I don't know if any of those points resonate
That's
with
a
you.
great point, Larry. That's a great point. It really pays it forward year after year with the sustainability.
Roger?
This may be completely out of left field, but
Why here, Raj?
I appreciate that you're concerned about doing due diligence, and obviously you should do due diligence and make sure. I think there's a clear consensus in this group that this is something you want to do, something you're comfortable to do, and is something that is the kind of, exactly the kind of thing the EDC should be growing into doing. What I'm concerned about is somewhere in Woodstock tonight, there's a family deciding whether they're going to have to move. I would suggest that you vote in principle that you're going to support these initiatives, that you word it in such a way that it's pending all of the due diligence that you have to do. But I would suggest you vote on that tonight, and then you publicize that vote.
Vote on what, Rob?
Vote on that you are in principle going to move forward with these initiatives. And I realize that's putting you in but I think there are people who are worried about this right now, and I think it would do you, I think it would reflect well on this organization.
Todd, can I comment on that?
Yes, and then Mika. Yes, thank you, Roger.
I want to comment on why I understand the proposal and why I'm opposed to doing it. What we are trying to do is to try to get to the select board very quickly. And I think if we follow the approach we're proposing, we can get to the select board on December 20th. Otherwise, their next meeting is on the 6th, and then the 20th. We could try to schedule a special meeting. I think for this purpose, what I want to avoid, and what we have so far avoided in 6 years, and is I want to avoid the substantive debates about EDC decisions happening at select board meetings. I think that would be a terrible and permanent change to the decision-making processes. And I think it would lead to much less focus on economic and community development. And I don't believe, despite the efforts of the working group and despite my efforts, I posted 3 times in the last 3 days about this meeting, the community doesn't know that there are 4 providers and the working group,
right,
who know that we're about to spend $335,000 on this.
Right.
We need to have I think there needs to be a public discussion about this. If we do what you said, there will be a public discussion about it, and it will, I think, or there's a chance, and it will happen at the select board meeting.
Yeah.
And that will change permanently or possibly the way in which the EDC operates. And,
Okay, I appreciate it.
and so that's the reason. So what we're trying to do is go really fast. What I would like to do, if we have a sense of the group tonight, and let's just do just what you said, if Todd is okay with it. Well, I know he is. Let's have a sense of the group tonight. I'm prepared to go to the select board tomorrow and tell them, look, we're coming to you on December 15th, 5 days before your meeting. We're going to send you proposals. We can give you the rough thing now. We are strongly in favor of this. We're going to hold the public meeting so you don't have to. I mean, it's going to be public.
Right.
But we want you to know, and we want to know right now if you've got concerns. We're going to deal with those concerns between now and the 15th so that we can pass this on the 20th.
That's why I said it's probably a little premature right now.
No, I understand, and it's an approach, but if you don't think it's the wisest approach.
There are pros, pros and cons. There's a negative to what I'm saying, which you've identified as. So anyway, so Todd, back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's Roger. This is going lightning speed for government. Every day hurts, but yeah, I think John's presented a solid plan, and he'll talk about it more, and we'll see your thoughts on it at that time a little further on in the meeting. Mika.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it's a really great point about, maybe there's a family tonight that's trying to make that decision. If it helps at all, the child care community is actually a very tight-knit community, and the people who need childcare talk to each other more than they talk to us, or then they listen to us, or then they read the listserv, or any of those things. So I have a feeling that this is already getting around, and there are a lot of people who know that this is hopefully, crossing fingers, imminent. Excuse me. Just circling back also to something that Larry had brought up, and this part might not matter, but I'll just touch on it anyway. In terms of housing, it's a circular thing. There's a chicken and an egg situation happening, but I do think that with more
adults that are able to work, there is more ability to raise money. That does, of course, does not mean that wages are the way that they are, that they should be, and that the jobs are available that provide the wages and all the things, and the houses are affordable and all the things. But certainly having working parents helps, and you can't do that without childcare. So I do think that this is one of the foundational pieces to solving some of the other larger issues that we need to deal with. And I actually don't think that we could solve for housing until we solve for childcare. I think it's lower down on the totem, or you know what I mean. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention, though, and I think it's important for everybody to keep in mind, I think maybe, Larry, this is what you were saying. This will not happen. I mean, if this gets approved right away, lightning speed for government work, as Todd says, this will still be a slow process. You know, the childcare centers will not necessarily be able to go out and hire the 5 teachers that they need tomorrow. So, and I guess I just want to say that out loud so that everybody can keep their expectations in a reasonable place. Nothing can happen without the money, but it's not, I don't want anybody to be disappointed if, you know, on January 6th, there aren't 80 spaces available for new kids. It will happen. I do truly believe that it'll happen. And I think that the childcare centers are going to move mountains to make use of the money that we're offering them. But
Yeah.
it will be a process.
Thank you, Mika. There will be about 30 to 40 slots available in the new year right away. And the rest will be trickling in as hires come. And just important to note that they have, because we've done this business exercise with a lot of these providers, they've looked at it and they've really gone out to reach out and offer the benefits and healthcare and wage increases, even without us telling they're going to have these funds yet, because they know it's where they're going to need to go. But without us, they can't get there. And that's why what's important to remember is that these are one-time grants that we've seen in the projections to build a self-sustaining situation in these centers, which is what LGK and other places like that have a bigger political, statewide, and national impact are looking to get them to accomplish in their own right. So we're really getting ahead of the curve here and helping people get to where they need to be. And what a great thing. I'm just so tired, but so happy to work with everybody on this. And I hope it goes the right direction. But you know, even if we help one kid, it's better than zero. And this is what it's all about.
Well, I think we should put our hands up.
Yeah. All right. So this is just sort of an informal vote. It's really so that I mean, as the chair, I'll do this so that I can tell the select board, you know, with great confidence, look, this is what's likely to happen. And I think that will help them to, you know, to engage now rather than engaging for the first time on the 20th. So why don't we just say it by a show of hands, assuming that these are well documented and that we're comfortable with the follow-up process, which I think we can be, both of those things. Are we comfortable with who would vote for this? Who would vote for these on December 15th? I would. Is there anyone who would not? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, this is really, really exciting. We don't need to discuss this, but let me just talk about the process that what I'd like to do is, we do need to pick a meeting date. 2 weeks from now is December 15th. I believe that the providers can get full proposals. Some of them really, to be honest, already have them. Some of the others can develop them. The core, all of the core ideas are done in the spreadsheets that they submitted. So I think we could have them in a week. And so there'd be a week of public availability. I would actually announce what's available tomorrow. I would announce, look, the substance of it is already on the website. It's not very pretty, but you can start to read it now. In a week, you'll have the formal proposals. Is December 15th, which is a Thursday night, 2 weeks from tonight, is that convenient for people?
Yes.
Anyone, is it not convenient for anybody? And should we start a little earlier or?
Yes.
Deborah's
I-
point,
I have a meeting until 6.
should we start at 6 or is that?
Okay, I won't be there physically then, but yeah.
No, I think I would still have this meeting all by Zoom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Preferred
I was gonna ask you if you could get pizza. Damn it.
You can do that too. I'm happy to do that.
Okay, but we're gonna have to take that, 50 or 60 bucks out of the 335.
I'll make spaghetti and meatballs if you want.
So let's say 6 o'clock. Deborah, is that a big? I don't want to. Should we?
I mean, even if you could say 6:15, it's a
right, fine.
big first meeting, then I don't want to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I know Deborah's. Yeah.
Is this a meeting you're inviting the public to?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point.
So,
Should we not change it from 6:30?
well, I'm just thinking that, I mean, I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't know if dinner time
Yeah.
is a good time to have a meeting if you want
It's not.
a lot of participation.
Right. So just to be clear, because this is, you've scratched one of my pet peeves. So I announced more than once and requested from the community of people who have kids, would you please suggest any other time that you think is convenient? We had one response from someone who I don't want to gauge her age, but does not have young children. Let me just put it that way. Who suggested, I don't remember what it was.
Saturday, 9 PM.
4 PM, right? Yeah.
So,
Well,
you
but,
know what?
but the truth is, the childcare group has had input from people.
We have.
And the input that we've received is sadly like 8.
Yeah.
Which for me with teenagers is actually, that's my witching hour, but whatever.
Time 8, she said?
8 PM.
8
Yeah.
o'clock, we've done the childcare working group meetings, except when I rammed one through early and got yelled at by everyone. But for the record, in the listserv, I stated that everyone would yell at me. Yeah.
Well, you know something, look, if the working group has had feedback, then I think we should make it at 8 PM, but we should just make clear in the list and say, look, this time is what's been recommended by people who have kids.
Mhm. And I think that for this particular vote, for this particular time, it would be prudent for us to heed their suggestions.
I agree. I get tired at 10, I start to fall asleep, but hopefully I'll be excited with some energy here and some
Well,
John
and,
jokes.
and practically speaking,
Why will it take too long?
nobody's going to be in opposition to this except a few old curmudgeons who say we should spend this money.
On sidewalks, right?
Yeah.
Which is why
But
we need
because
to have it in-
And if this is the only issue we're gonna discuss, it shouldn't take 2 hours.
Yeah,
That's
and they have
true,
already
Joe.
done a presentation already, a sort of dry run for us to recommend them to present. They were very clear and concise, and so I can only imagine it'll be more honed in.
No, it'll be people who are, the people who need to have a chance to voice are the people who are opposed.
That's
We've
right.
never met them, but maybe there aren't any.
John,
Deborah,
can we open up the online forum for this again? Just for this?
We could, but you know what, to be honest, I actually think because we're so,
We're at the 1
I
yard
think
line.
Okay, so the reason I'm saying this is the first time that we're spending a very large, we're all for it. And I think, I mean, I think we all think it's going to pass, but the idea is that we're giving people the opportunity to express themselves. And so that's what that forum is for.
yeah, okay,
So-
that's a fair point. Yeah, I think we can. I think we open it on December 8th for 1 week and we announce it in advance.
That's a great
Yeah,
idea.
that's the way we've
Yeah.
done
Great
it,
idea.
like, okay, you've had your opportunity. If you didn't
Yeah.
get on there and express.
Great idea. We already
Right.
have it built. It's a great idea.
You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
And
this way
we,
they have 2 shots at it. They have the.
Right.
And there was the article today in the Standard. There's been many posts, but we are not afraid of engagement. It's a very good
Right.
point, Deb. We should give them all the opportunities we have built to speak. Sure.
and
And in
also I think it's important that we don't, or that we set the right precedent as we move toward larger,
Right.
projects and larger dollars.
Yep.
The
point.
precedent is important.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
You're
The
right,
Stan-
Deborah.
The Standard, by the way, I proposed this date in part because the Standard suggested that if we schedule this meeting after December 8th, that they'll basically cover it and if we do it on a Thursday night, they'll basically put in the paper, the meeting is tonight, and they'll write a big article, they'll write an article. But Tom Ayers wrote
Right.
the article he wrote that article thinking we were going to vote tonight, and I called him and just right before he was about to go to press and said, hey, don't say it's tonight because it's going to be, he said, fine, but do it on a day if you can.
And then I was texting him saying, no, it's tonight, Tom. It's tonight. Yeah.
Okay, great. I do want to, I want to make one issue. There are two issues that are that sound very thorny, and I think in the end are not, that the working group or some members of the working group have talked about at length. And I don't want to discuss this. I really don't. We can discuss it on the 15th. I just want you to be aware of it so that you don't hear about it first if it does come up on the 15th. The two issues are, one of these four organizations is a church. Is it appropriate, legal, whatever words you want to use? Can we give money? Can we give money to a church and for this purpose? And secondly,
And we're not discussing it right now.
we're not. I'm gonna explain to you I'm gonna give you some information about that issue. And the second issue is, three of these providers are in Woodstock. The fourth is not in Woodstock by about 300 yards. Should Woodstock taxpayer dollars go to an organization that's not in Woodstock?
I thought we
I
covered.
thought we agreed to this already.
Okay,
Yeah, we covered that.
okay, if we have covered that, that's fine.
Yeah,
that's fine.
we
You're all-
did. We took it, the commission took it, the working group took the commission for a vote, John, and we talked about it, but it still is a good point, everyone, for him to bring it up because we
Yeah.
might have forgot.
What-
John forgot, so.
Well,
John,
but
remember?
I just want to, yeah, okay, fine. If everyone is comfortable with that, by the
That's
way,
good. It's
the
good to bring it
rationale
up.
for that, the piece of information to help defend against that is that primarily the residents of Bridgewater have put $1.4 million into the facility in which the childcare thing is operating.
Yeah.
We
Well,
didn't
and
particularly
by the
contribute to
numbers, by the numbers in the proposals, right now, 80% of what they're doing over there is Woodstock people.
that. Correct.
And
Yeah.
going forward, it's
That's
gonna
what
be
you had
50%
said, yeah.
at least.
Yeah, we
and-
told them they should rename it to the Woodstock Childcare, but
exactly.
then they said, well, give us our $1.4 million back then and we'll do
Yeah.
naming rights.
And with respect to the
Oh.
religion, with respect to the religious issue, and Larry can correct me if I summarize this wrong, but it is, not only is it legal for us to give money for this specific purpose,
Right.
which is cubbies and facilities and playground equipment, it is illegal for us to deny them funding on the basis of the fact that they're a religious organization.
That's correct.
Plus, they're not,
Okay.
they're not letting kids in based on their religion anyway.
I
No,
understand.
everyone's welcome. We're not going to talk about, we'll talk about the 15th, but yes.
I'm just
I will
saying,
say, John, really quickly to interject, I will say that I am sensitive to this point, even though I am a religious person, which doesn't really matter, but you know what I'm saying? I would say I am still working very hard with West to try to get West to open up their after-school care program again. I was in a finance meeting last night and they had an hour presentation just about that. So we are working hard on another thing that does not require at this time any involvement from the EDC, but that is a fifth prong in this issue that we are working on to provide for the littlest of children who cannot ride the bus, that their option would be WCCC now granted this money. So anyway, just some color on that. We're working on a fifth rung in the ladder there outside of this.
okay, all right, thank you. Okay, we've done downtown revitalization and childcare. I think the only other group that has, well, no, sorry, Patrick, you might have something on marketing, but I want to give Deborah and Michael a chance briefly to just talk about your thinking about the events working group. Does one of you want to go first?
Yeah, I was gonna hand it to Michael. But I'm here.
Well, that's very thoughtful of you.
Yeah, well, I know you have things to say. You have things to say.
Yes, it's all quiet on the events front. I mean, we've been publicizing this to say, yeah, we have money available for events, and I think we've had maybe one person contact us with no follow-up. So, I guess what we have to do at this point is we're waiting to see what happens come the grant deadline. Are we actually going to get any sleeper grants that people are just quiet and they're waiting until the actual deadline to actually do some proposal? If we get something great, we review it and we present it. If not, then I think the events committee is going to have to, I wouldn't say dissolve, but kind of take a back seat, and maybe anything that comes in that is event related is going to go under the community grant heading. That's just it makes sense. And then we can put our energies into other working groups because there's not a whole lot happening in terms of events because we're not creating events. Our job is to assist other people that actually have those events. And if they're not coming, there's not much we can do. You want to add to that, Deb?
They'll probably change the summertime.
Yeah, just that, I mean, Ditto. Yeah, it's kind of what we came down to, and that we're in agreement of these larger grants are the way to go. And the issues, the top two are issues as we see that, you know, having to do with childcare and housing, you know, we're all behind. So, and that we've tried over the last year and a half, 2 years to assist groups that already exist, and they're efficient on their own and not expanding in a significant way. And as we've all said, we're not the ones that we shouldn't become a production company. That's not where we should be spending our money right now. So we're game for it if people come to us, and we've been reaching out. And the one person that did reach out to me, and we had a little bit of back and forth, and then they kind of disappeared, but I think they disappeared because it's the Comedy Fest, and I hope everybody does go to it, but they're not in Woodstock. They're in all of the areas around us. So we'll see if anything comes through. It'd be awesome if something comes through that makes sense, but otherwise we both feel like we'd like to add our energy towards other things since it's not happening.
Yeah, and Joe mentioned that it might change, and it may change, but if it does, something comes up maybe in the summertime, then we can address it. We'll still be happy to work on events, but I think it's better served under the community grants heading versus us trying to, dedicate a working group to something that's really not doing any work, when we can actually maybe help on the other initiatives.
And I would just like to say, having just done big events and having done big events, you don't want to be convincing somebody to do a big event. They have to come to you passionately, ready to go. Otherwise we're screwed. It's like it works differently a little bit on this one. So
Excellent point.
Yeah, a year ago or 18 months ago, we sunset the attracting new business working group, because as a working group, not that we didn't care about attracting new businesses, but as a working group, there wasn't really interest or a lot of ability to, or there wasn't a path to doing something. So
Right.
I will, unless anyone objects, I will say that we have 4 working groups, and or that we have 5, we would like to support events, but we have 4 working. And just leave it at that and then all it takes is a conversation at an EDC meeting to have 5 working groups.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's still, I think we leave it there, and it dissolves as we continue to funnel the money in. And
We'll just call
Follow
you
our
the
direction.
sleeper group,
the what group?
the sleeper group.
We're the
Yeah.
sleeper group. Yeah.
You wake
All right.
up when you need it and you go back to sleep when you're not.
Patrick, do you have anything on marketing?
Yeah, did you get my,
I did, but I didn't incorporate it. Do you want to just give us a quick verbal update?
oh, John, you didn't really?
Do you want? I can, it'll just take.
Patrick, just say it. They're
Hold on.
taking up a lot of
He
time.
has
no,
colors
guys,
and
it's a
charts. He's
lot of-
got,
it's a
look at
lot
the
of stuff.
pictures. Look at the
It's a lot of
pictures.
stuff.
All right, hold on 1 second. Just give me a second. Sorry,
And you even emailed me for it, John.
oh man, this is not trivial. Hold on 1 second. I'm almost there, yes.
No worries.
Can you give us an overview?
Apparently not.
Hey, guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm
Patrick,
gonna
speak to
give you, I'm gonna let you know where we are with the program, what it's done. So you can see, it's important.
I got it here. I got it. One more click.
John's just so slow at the computer,
Oh, man. Those are fighting words.
Okay. Now, well, I'm gonna take you through.
Is that your
basically-
house, Patrick?
Oh, I wish.
Big.
That's what I've done to the motel, Todd. Okay, so what I'm going to take you through here is kind of the top half of this is the overview of the program that we've been basically built and have been running for basically 2 seasons, the summer season and the fall season. And we're about to transfer to the winter season, but I want to give everybody an idea of exactly what we're doing and how it's working. So basically the whole approach here is to use Facebook ads to drive traffic to the website. And when people get to the website, we're incenting them to give us their name and their interests so that we can then remarket to them via email. So the top part of this is, if you look where it says program start, we had, before we started this program, we had a little over 3,000 emails. And that's all we had was emails. We had no idea who they were. We had no idea where they lived. We literally just had an email. And then when we started the program at the beginning of the summer, we started collecting not just an email, but all the information we need about them. And you can see that in 5 years, we had, oh, what happened, John?
Sorry, okay, hold on. I'm just trying, just give me 1 second because the document is very, very small. I'm trying to get a bigger version of it. Just
Okay.
give me 1 second. I'm gonna.
Everyone look at John's bookmarks.
I think I can.
Should I call up one of my kids? They could probably do that. My grandson could probably figure that out in a minute.
It's very age.
That better, John?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, but now I can make it bigger. I couldn't. make it.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, perfect. All right, and that's the way you have it right now is perfect too, because this is the first part of what I want to say. So you can see when in 5 years, they got 3,000 names roughly. In 4 months, we added 7,000, almost 7,400 more names. And in the next 3 months in the fall season, we added another 8,000 names. So as you can see, as each time that we do this, we're collecting more and more information, giving us more ability to market to people directly and drive traffic here based on what their interests are. So we're basically generating this number of leads from the program. So we get, for instance, in the first summer, we got 10,430 leads. Of those leads, we collected 7,328 email addresses. And then you can see the fall was crazy. We didn't collect quite as many email addresses as you might think, but it's because of the type of traffic that happens in the fall. So you can see that we've now taken our email list and dramatically increased the size of it to almost 18,000 names. All right, so now we also are crushing it on the open rates and the click-through rates. We are, in some cases, almost double what the industry standards are for open rates for our emails and click-through rates that take them to the website. Now, the way we're doing this is when they come to the website, this is for the fall season, we had 2 incentive offers. One was a night at the Woodstock Inn Resort, and one was at the Blue Horse B&B. And from the ad spend, we spent about $1,000 roughly on Facebook ads. And our cost per leads were 48 cents and 54 cents. We generated, as you can see, 3,500 and 3,000 leads. Now the impressions, this is the number of times that our ad would go in front of somebody. For the Woodstock Inn Resort, it's crazy number. And then for the Blue Horse, a slightly smaller number. But interestingly enough, they collected the same number of leads, but we had a lot more visibility. In terms of the ad that won, now the way the program works is that we present a number of ads to Facebook people, and it's all automated. So we do these different ads, and the system uses AI to know which ad is working the best. And it will start to show more of that ad to drive more traffic to the website. Then once they get to the website, they're going to see either the Woodstock Inn Resort or the Blue Horse B&B. So this is the ad that actually gave us the best click cost per lead, in basic was in a sense, the winning ad. But it's constantly changing and watching and seeing what happens. So we've just dramatically increased what we can do and how we can market ridiculously. The top performing blog posts. Now this is basically what happens. The click-through rate on the emails. People are basically going to the things we can do. Oh, we went too far, Jeff.
Sorry, yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm having trouble controlling it here.
A little bit more. Okay, right there, good. they're coming to the things to do page, the home page and the lodging page. Now, the nice thing about this is that we now know these are the pages we need to focus more attention to. So that when people come to them, they're staying there longer and learning more about Woodstock and hopefully, booking and so forth. Now, from this program, we have basically now, we created in a sense, a chart using industry standards, because right now there's no way to qualify who actually came. So we used industry standards. We were ultra conservative. And from the 2 seasons that we've done so far, we've generated anywhere between $2.1 and $4.1 million of business to Woodstock that we can, we can't attribute it at this point because we don't, that's the next part of the engine we want to build. But we're doing a great job at bringing people in. And then you can scroll down further, John, just leave me at Google Analytics. This is just to give you an idea of, we have basically the different search at, you have, when people come in, they're looking for Woodstock. They come into our site either via organic, direct search, from social media, from referrals, or from email. So these are the number of people or sessions. A session is basically a time that someone came to the website. How long they stay on the page, how many pages they're looking at, and how many of these are new. Now, this is an interesting thing here because new traffic means these are new people who have not come to the website, and most likely have not been to Woodstock. So you can see that number is pretty high. And with the email, it makes sense for it to be lower because those people are getting emails once a month from us, an organic email that we're sending to them once a month. And then the rest of this is just what we're doing in Facebook. Facebook, where our likes are, again, we see we're improving each month. Engagements go up again, and this is based on, of course, obviously fall is going to be a much higher number than November, but you can just see our reach by paid. Now, the paid reach is because we're doing the ads. So you can see when we put the ads in out in the market, we're getting a lot more traffic, but we're getting a decent organic traffic as well. Okay, and then last is our Instagram page, which is doing, it increases much more than the Facebook page. It's sort of the hot place to be. And you can see we have just incredible reach and impressions from our followers. And then these are the 2 most popular Instagram posts. So anybody have any questions?
No, I mean,
That's
Okay.
great work.
very
Good
cool.
stuff, Patrick. Really awesome.
Just so you
Awesome.
know, I mean, it's in every month, we're going to keep collecting names. We're going to go through the December now. At the end of December, we'll see how that does, given Wassel and Christmas. But in each time, we doubled the number of names just on the first summer program, and we're going to own this list that we can market to them as much or as little as we want or need to. Right. So that's kind of and a good part of this is automated.
Can I ask a quick question?
Roger, yeah.
On the Facebook ads, are you using some kind of programmatic engine to present them to
Yes.
the demographic? Okay.
Yep. And it's constantly watching to see which ads get the most clicks and adjusting so that ad will show up more.
Right. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. If there are no further questions, is there anyone from the housing group that is, usually Trina shows up if there's something for them to report?
And nobody gave us, and 3 of us here on that group too.
Yeah,
They didn't ask us to update anything either.
right.
I can update one more thing, John. The grants manager.
Yeah, wait, we'll come to that.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, we do. That's later on the agenda.
Okay, sorry.
That's all right, coming to it. So nothing on housing. Okay, sorry, which of the 3 of you that are on housing? You, Deborah, and
Marion.
Marion? Oh, okay, sorry, I didn't realize that. Okay. Okay. let me just go back for 1 second, sorry. I can't really think without having a horizontal chart. Community grants, we've had 2 or 3 submissions. I get an email every time someone fills in the application on the website. I'll start promoting it further on the listserv. The revolving loan fund has made some progress. Larry, do you want to update us, or Larry or Joe together update us on that? I have 1 page here that summarizes.
Go ahead, Larry, you're the lawyer.
Not so. Yeah, well, I think we made good progress. I identified a program that's very close to what we're thinking everybody is going to want in Bradford. And I had a long conversation with what is their economic development person a while back, gave us some preliminary stuff, and then John and Joe and I had a really good Zoom call with his name is Bill Moore, Bradford has an excellent working model. They've had great experience with these kinds of loans, and we gained a lot of that. They have a lot of documents online. We confirmed with a lawyer that it's legal for us to provide loans to private businesses. We're in the process of getting a quote from the lawyer that Bradford uses to see what it would cost to create the documentation, the loan agreements, the security agreements, and whatever else is necessary for that process. So I would say that they were closing in on the possibility of making a proposal to the full EDC on creating this loan fund. I think it's going to be a really valuable thing for the community.
Joe?
You know why I feel really good about this is I think it fills a gap that the EDC has. I mean, we're very good with the aforementioned projects that we've been engaged in and doing a great job with it. But I sometimes feel, you know, that a private business who may legitimately need funds for either expansion or development or startup or something, I really feel that we kind of abandon them in a way. I mean, you know, they are a profit generating enterprise, and it's really, and I understand it, it's really their task to come up with funds, whatever funds they need to operate. But sometimes a little help is great, and we can never seem to provide that help. With this program, in my opinion, it fills that gap. We can say, you know what? The EDC doesn't fund private businesses, but what we can do is we can set you up and with a loan. And this is how you apply, and this is the process you go through. But it gives us something to offer to private businesses that need, you know, a little help with getting started or developing. When we spoke with, what was his name, John?
Bill Moore?
Bill Moore in Brandon, the way it's set up, and if we follow their path, it's very attractive, I think. I mean, the loans are affordable, and they're, you know, you can roll them over if need be. I mean, it's a good thing to do. I mean, and in their case, they've been doing it for quite a few years. They've only had one default and all the time left there. And the way that it can get set up, it makes it a good thing, a good package to offer a private business that the EDC hasn't been able to offer in the past. And I think it's a worthwhile thing for us to work at and develop and get going.
Todd?
Yeah, thanks, John. I agree with everything just said. I think that Joe's right on point. Like, I came full circle on this. I really wasn't in favor of it in the beginning, and as I saw it mature and the ideas came forth, I remember when I needed like $10,000 from Citibank when I was 22 and they laughed at me and I like had a nervous breakdown and then I had to scramble and like
I've been there.
beg and it's like, so just the fact that like, again, like community helping community. And I think this goes to like what Deb's vibe was when she came in here around the same time as me, is like community. And in a town of under 4,000 people and with the resources we're given by this tourism industry, I just think, giving people a shot, it's a great idea. And I really, my point is, I hope it's ready for us to vote on and have meaningful usage of before we do the annual grants meeting, because I know at the annual grants meeting and someone's going to come in there and we'll be like, oh, I wish this was ready for a loan. And it'd be really cool if we were in a position to be able to parlay that in a vote if it wasn't going for a grant. So my hope is that this work can be wrapped up in time in a position before then, if possible, so that we can have that tool in our belt and opportunity to give to folks that otherwise might miss out on the grant requirements. And but if not, I get it. This is really good work, and I 100% support it.
All right, any other comments or questions? I just want to draw people's attention before I take this slide down on the first bullet point, which in my mind at least clarified, I hope, a simple, clear way that if we set this up, and it goes to your point, Joe, about a missing gap that we're filling, it sets up pretty clearly to me the difference between the community grant fund and the business loan program. The objective, as I wrote it here, is to provide low interest loans to support the growth of existing and new local businesses. And it's the parenthetical point that I want to emphasize, where the business is the primary beneficiary of the grant. It's not the community. The community indirectly benefits, but this is basically, okay, Joe, you've got Montvert and you need to borrow money so that Montvert can grow and be more successful.
Yeah.
The business is the primary beneficiary, and therefore it's not appropriate for the community grant program. And if you go, the words that Deborah and I used to announce the community grant program, which probably not a lot of people studied in detail, but Deborah and I wrote them, basically says that the community grant program is for things where the primary beneficiary is the community, not an individual. And so that to me draws a pretty nice bright line. I mean, obviously you have to use judgment as to who the primary beneficiary is, but if we look back over the proposals we got from businesses, in almost every case, it was very clear that the business was the primary beneficiary. And I think, Joe, to your point, we didn't have a product for that.
That's right.
And so I'm hoping that this language, that we're comfortable with this language, that we can codify it, because it can, if we are comfortable with it, it will reduce confusion. Say, look, Roger, if you're the primary beneficiary, great, we got a program for you. If it's the community is the beneficiary, we've got a program for you.
But to that point, I think, John, I think it shouldn't be overlooked, is that, right, the business is the primary beneficiary of this, but it ricochets right into the community.
It does, but
It does.
And that's why the EDC is doing it.
That's right, exactly right. And that's why we're doing it.
But it's also,
we could in the past.
but it's also not the same direct benefit
That's right.
as the community grant program, which is why we're not doing that.
Oh, it's a good way to thread the needle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mika.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to what Todd said. I think it's a really good point. So I just want to emphasize it a little. We probably, and I love this program and thank you so much. Great work, super great work. And it takes the time that it takes. And I understand that, but we probably will really want this in January. So
Probably what?
We'll really want this in January.
yeah, so I'm just highlighting what Todd mentioned there and just given that.
And I just
an extra
set
thumbs up.
expectations here. Larry, maybe you would want to do this. We're not going to have this in January.
Okay,
No.
We're
Good
also
to
not
know.
going to have it in December. I think I wrote down here Q2.
Oh, come
April,
on.
May, June. And I think what we could say is, if I'm sensing the group that we have an appetite for this, we've said already we have an appetite for it if we can work out the details. I think what Joe and Larry and I are saying is, we've talked to somebody, we can work out the details. Now we just have to work them out.
It's doable.
We have a budget to retain a lawyer. Larry is already in contact with the attorney that set up the program in Brandon or Bradford, whichever, I'm not sure which town it is. It's Brandon.
Brandon, I was wrong.
Yeah, okay, fine.
That'll let
so-
you go quick. You can just have them copy the forms and put our name at the top. Have it by the end of the month.
So
It's
in,
not-
in
Thank you, Patrick.
theory, I'm sorry, John, in theory, can we also announce in the same way we just did with the other programs to say, you know, we're all in agreement on the EDC and this is coming out. So we can be ready in January for the people, and it just may take a couple of months for it to become legal, but can we do that vote ahead of time so that we can say it's available? It will be available?
No,
Well,
not in January. I mean, Deborah, your heart's in the right place, but it's really, I don't think practical to commit to that kind of a time frame right now. What we did learn from that discussion with Larry and John and I was that there's quite a bit involved. I mean, we'll have to recruit people who can vet the applications. We have to get money from another source, and all that is, it's not going to happen overnight. But
I understand, Joe. What I'm saying is that
I guarantee you it will happen.
Deborah.
that's my point, is that if we are unanimously committed to creating the program, we can announce that in January. It's just a matter of saying to them, we don't
Right.
have the date in which it's going to be available to
Like, I
you.
think our sort of version of a memorandum of understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can say, look for it in Q2.
But I just don't want the public to get misunderstood that, January, start applying.
No, that's not what
not what we're
that's not gonna
saying.
happen.
That's not what she's
Hold
saying.
on, let me push back a little bit. I think we can speak now about January, or we can speak in January.
Yeah.
Exactly what we say, though, I think it needs to take into account the following. The loan program, if we, as I think we will, spend a significant portion of our reserves on the childcare proposal. Remembering that there is at least one working group, if not two, if not three, that will by March or April or May have six-figure grant proposals in front of us. The way that we will be able to fund the business loan fund, the revolving loan fund, is by borrowing and committing to pay, is by borrowing. And so.
From another source.
Borrowing, yeah, by
we're gonna have to
definition.
borrow. We're not gonna have it.
Because we'll raise a bond, in effect. We'll probably do it through a bank.
Yeah.
And then we'll commit to pay that back, and we'll be taking the payments we receive from the loan repayments and passing them back on to the bank. We will be covering a very small piece of interest, so it won't cost us a lot of money. And so in the long term, it doesn't take a lot of EDC resources, but in the short term, these aren't going to be $2,000. People aren't going to apply for a loan to grow their business for $2,000. They're going to be applying for loans for $25,000 or $50,000 or $75,000. That's what Brandon's experience is. And it's also been our experience for the requests that we've gotten in the community grant program. We need to put that lending facility in place. We've never done that before. We've talked to banks about doing it. So,
Right.
Interest rates are skyrocketing. So we need to be cautious. And I think, to be perfectly honest, that there's an argument, I think a pretty strong argument, that we shouldn't be doing this. It's private business. Raise the money. And so I think that by saying, I think what we should be saying is, we have been through two discussions of this. Both times the EDC members were unanimous that we want to continue to push this forward. We want to work through the details, and we want to offer this program. Right now, we think we can offer the program in Q2, but we have some things we can't come, we're working towards it. We want to do it. And please come back to us. We'll keep you posted. We'll keep a list of people who are interested, all of those things. But I think to say that we
Just
are.
the language.
Yeah, I just think it's, yeah.
Okay.
And I think also, by the way, we need to give the public, the public is consistently and strongly opposed to providing EDC financial support to private businesses.
That's right.
We see a period, full stop. We've taken a survey of them. And we had 100 people respond during COVID, and they basically, and 80% of the people said in normal times, we shouldn't be doing this. This was grants. So anyway, my point is we need to follow the process. And I don't think there's much harm in the timing. We're not talking about the next cycle. We're talking about, I think, Larry and Joe, if you agree, I think, when I say Q2, January, February, March, April, May, or June,
Yeah.
it's pretty soon.
Yeah.
So,
And and we haven't had one. So to John's point, if
It's
we're
a
gonna
step
do it, let's do it right and take our time and get it set up
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah.
So,
It makes sense.
I don't think we're
Good.
saying, I don't think we're saying.
I don't think we're disagreeing.
I think what Deborah, correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Deborah's trying to say is, let's put a thing out there saying, hey, coming soon, for the people who don't fit in the community fund, we're gonna be shortly having a loan fund to do. And we hope to have it ready in Q2.
maybe sort of corner, maybe.
We have already put that out there more than
So-
once.
Yes, we have.
Read the posts.
Yes.
So I think what I heard, I think maybe it was Mika say is, it's too bad that we're not gonna have it available then for the grants that come in and don't get a grant. And so I just would like for us to be able to say, hey, it doesn't fit in here, but we're working on it. And, stay tuned. So it's
Absolutely. I
specifically
totally
with
agree with that.
those who are coming in through the pipeline, not going out this way yet, but just, letting people know who are putting effort towards being involved with us.
So just, right, agree completely with that. And that language, in fact, is what we said when we announced the community loan program.
Yeah.
There's an explicit point that basically says, as you're thinking about applying for the community loan program, you should be aware that we are, the words you use, that we are working on this for this purpose. And so we should continue to communicate that. I think yeah, I think we're vehemently agreeing. So, okay.
Can I just ask,
Last
in
comment.
terms of managing expectations, I didn't realize it was going to work this way, that you were essentially going to be becoming a front person, and I don't mean that in a bad way, for a financial institution. How significant is the benefit of that going to be in the sense of a much lower interest rate?
Yes.
Bradford's program is 2 points below prime,
Okay,
So
so
it's
that's
both
significant.
4%.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, and it makes sense, because I mean, you're right, $75,000 is the kind of thing people are going to ask for, and you don't have that kind of money just sitting around. So it makes sense, but I just think in terms of managing expectations, I wouldn't go out with anything that says we're absolutely going to do this, and people say, oh, it's only 2% under prime. I mean, it's like, which again is a big number in big numbers, but
Yeah.
you're asking for $5,000, it doesn't make much difference.
Right.
But John, we also have that question of whether the EDC can actually borrow money. So I don't know that we've ever done it before.
Yeah, we have not done it before. I don't think it's, I mean, I'm confident in the answer, but we need to.
I'm just saying.
We need to actually borrow it. I mean,
Yeah.
we need to set up a facility where, I think there are two questions. Are we allowed to borrow money? And will someone lend us money? I think I know the answer to the first question. I'm happy to investigate it, but I'm confident in the answer to the first one. I think we need to address the second one. But if we need to address both, that's fine too.
John, who would-
I'm
Who
just
would
saying
borrow
that
the
I'm just saying that we shouldn't jump,
Yeah.
like it's absolutely gonna happen.
No, I agree. I think we're agreed. I think what the words Deborah used are fine. We're working on it. And those are the words we've already used, we should keep using.
Yeah.
We've used them multiple times.
I know. And what's the hurry? We haven't had one. So when we get it done, we get it done.
But I think, but I think we should move her. We want
Yeah.
to move as quickly as we can. So, all right. Okay, I think we're agreed. But so we've only got 10 minutes left. We've got a couple of things to talk about. And actually, Deborah, I'm just wondering.
Why don't we do this later, or I can send to people and then we can have
I think we do it at the next meeting. I think it's an important topic. I think we should take the TEDx thing, send it to
Yeah.
people in advance, and we'll do it at the next meeting.
I just, and just so I'm letting people know exactly what it is, what we're talking about is how to make sure that I had talked to John and said, okay, how do I let you know how it went, and to say, how did I spend the money and what does it look like and what happened? And so I sent him just something in writing. And then I said, but we're missing something valuable here for everyone. We need pictures. We need to know how the EDC logo was placed. We need to, all of these different things that we need to have access to, for numbers so that we can be more present in the community and the community can have a better understanding of where the money went and the effect. And so that's why I was willing to say, okay, here it is, here's everything. The only thing that I would say, on the January meeting which would be the next one, is like, it has all my financials as well, like every little piece of it. So I guess that's fine. I was giving it to you guys, so I guess it's fine to go live with that.
This is a public meeting, so in fact, some people aren't, so.
Yeah, which is fine. It just shows where everything went and et cetera, not line item, but you know what I mean?
But
Anyway.
I think this, so the idea here is using TEDx as an example of what we would like, because it's a really good example, because there's only been 2 grantees who have ever proactively done this. One is Deborah, and the other actually this year was Bookstock, who actually wrote to us and said, not in as comprehensive a way as you've done, but they did feel obligated to report back to us what happened. So, okay.
Right,
So
and pros and cons of the experience so that we know how to help people in the future.
yeah. All right. So we'll table that for the next meeting. I want to go back because Patrick, you said you have a quick update of the storefront incentive program. There's no update. The grant writing program. Do you want to just briefly talk about that, Patrick? Oh, you're muted, Patrick.
We've had 11 people reach out looking for grants. We have a spreadsheet that we use that we keep track of everything, who's responded, what they've said, what we've responded back to them. We haven't written any grants. We basically we've talked to people and we told them what they need to do and what we can help them do that. We haven't written any grants or anything. It's really everything right now is in the hands of the people who've reached out to us. There is one grant that we need to talk about here, and it has to do with being in Woodstock or not being in Woodstock. Nick Farrow handles the Upper Valley Wood and Food Bank. He manages that apparently, and he was looking for help to get grant money, but they service South Royalton, Reading, and I can't say that. I'm going to say this wrong. Lamoille County. Did I say that right?
Well,
And so the question is this something that our grant manager should be working on? Because it's not Woodstock, but it's a Woodstock resident who is supervising this program.
I think that it's Lamoille, by the way. I think that as long as there are Woodstock beneficiaries and it is being run by a Woodstock resident, then in my opinion, that would satisfy more than enough to warrant whether or not this person is spending a little bit of time, trying to find funding for them.
I agree with that sentiment.
There aren't Woodstock beneficiaries.
Right. It's managed by a Woodstock resident, but not, it's only going to benefit South Royalton, Reading, and Lamoille counties.
We have
so there's no one in Woodstock that applies for his services? Really? I find that hard to believe.
We have our own food bank. That's why.
Yeah, we do. We have a food shelf. We don't have do we have another wood person, or is Nick the only wood person? Anyway, honestly, even just the fact that he is a Woodstock resident, I think is enough. Especially with the work that he's doing. I think it would be fine.
Todd?
We allocated a certain amount of money for the grants manager based on a certain amount of hours. And I think that if the grants manager has capacity, that we should leave it to them to decide if there's room for things like this. And I think if the minimum requirement is it has anything in Woodstock in there, especially in this sort of endeavor. I think we should have the leadway to talk about it like we are now and say, yeah, it's a good idea or not. I would say it's a good idea. These are services that, again, like as we know, with the housing and the cost of living in Woodstock, many of our employees and folks that work here and we get things off the backs of their labor, live in the outlying communities and the poor communities such as Reading and so on and so forth. So helping the Pharaoh, who's Woodstock and a shop owner, I think is something great. But again, I would just, if we had a pick, I would say if there's time and room, then I would be okay with it moving in that direction. But if someone else came by that needed that energy for the sort of allotted amount of time and budget for the grants manager that had a more direct, and I think we should have the opportunity to say, let's focus there. But in the meantime, it sounds like the traffic's fairly low, but important traffic nonetheless. So, I would suggest we say this one's okay.
Patrick, could we ask what would happen if a resident of Woodstock applied for wood or food benefits?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We'll talk to Nick and find out if, at least for the wood part, if a Woodstock resident could apply.
I mean, if the answer to that was yes, then I think
We move
it
forward.
is a service, then I would be very comfortable. I think if
I
the
would
answer
too.
to that was no,
Yeah.
then I would not be comfortable. I mean,
Makes sense. That's a great question. I think let's get that answer, and that's a great point.
Yeah. I think
All right.
that's the obvious question. If yes, the Woodstock resident can get wood, then I think we go forward. If not, then I think
and how much wood could a Woodstock?
I was
resident
waiting
get?
for somebody to say that.
No wood for you.
Somebody advertises in the listserv, so somebody's doing it here. I don't know who it is.
Well, but it's
I
not,
think it's Nick.
Yeah, I don't know. Somebody puts it in the listserv every once
it
in a
might
while.
be right, Mika.
We
yeah.
got wood,
Yeah, I see
we'll
that.
talk to Nick. We'll talk to Nick and find out.
Okay,
So you guys, so just so we understand, so we're all clear, if a Woodstock resident can take advantage of this, then we're all cool with having the grants manager work with them.
absolutely.
Okay.
And I
Sorry,
think
I'm not
maybe,
speaking for everybody.
maybe to Todd's point, if there was a line out the door and the grants manager was really struggling to keep on top of everything, then, but actually, if it benefits Woodstock residents, then yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay. All right, there's one last point, just to try to finish up in the next couple of minutes. I'd like to see whether this is a debatable point, in which case we can postpone it because we should give it some time, or whether or not it's just sort of a no-brainer. It's okay with me if it's either one, but I just want to raise it. We now are settling in, I think, really nicely to these different, relatively clear, differentiated channels of providing funding through community grants. Beneficiary is multiple parts of the community. The revolving loan fund, where the beneficiary is a single business, which is okay, primary beneficiary, and major grants. And those two things can be in any area. Community grants is anything that's economic or community development. Business is anything that's business. And the major grant program, which is just in our priority areas. You can't submit a request for a major grant unless it's childcare or housing or marketing or events or downtown rejuvenation. Leave events aside because we had that event discussion, but I would like to propose that our approach to, and we have a process for doing community grants, and we're going to define the process for revolving loan funds. For major grants, we've just said as they are developed and when funding is available, because we want them to happen on a recurring basis. I would like to propose, and we've never said this before, that if you have a major grant, if the community puts together a major grant, if someone from the community, if Roger wants to have $100,000 for his housing idea, that he has to work through a working group. Now, that doesn't mean that he can't present it to us, but he basically has to first work with the working group, and the working group has to have a point of view. And then he has the right to bring it to the full EDC, where the working group can stand up and say, we think this is a good idea, we think this is a terrible idea. But that what we don't want is for the working group to be working over here and for Roger to just come right to the EDC with another housing project, because it's the working group that is presumably thinking about these things and we want their input, so forth. So really, is this a no-brainer, or is this something that we should have a further discussion about?
It's a no-brainer.
No brainer.
No-brainer.
Okay. Does anyone think
No-brainer.
Okay, anyone think it's a brainer?
You mean a Barnard?
I guess
Okay.
this means I'm gonna have to shelve my new yurt program.
Right, exactly.
Well, bring it in, bring it in. We'd love to talk to you about that.
Okay, so we now have a clear process for community grants. It's an annual application. We set aside funding. We have our annual meeting. We will define a revolving loan fund approach. And we now say that our approach for funneling major grants and giving them is through the working groups, although we want ideas from the community, big ideas from the community. We haven't been getting them, but we want them. And if you do have them, you have the right to come to the EDC, but you have to go through the working group first. And at least make them aware of it and work with them. So, okay.
I have one quick question. I know we're right at time, but it feels like it comes together. Larry has also, that by the way, the MVC thing was fabulous for the startup Woodstock, and I want to understand that more. Though obviously some of those pictures were pretty funny about it's going to become this bustling place, when they were how they cut it together, but everybody should see that piece that was done by NBC on Startup Woodstock. But that feels like one of the things that should be in what you just said, John, because it's like, here are all the avenues to get your project or your business or your need taken care of.
Right. So the reason it's not is because Startup Woodstock is not an EDC initiative. It's a grantee.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But it is. Okay. I just feel like it's a different way of a project happening potentially. And it is another way that the EDC is coming forward to find another way to get to grant money, because it's a little bit different than just a grant that we granted, where we partnered with them basically to create this.
Well,
right?
what I would like to create a bright line, where I would like to create a bright line for the benefit of everyone's sanity is to not saddle Startup Woodstock with a requirement to comply with the open meeting law, to have to take minutes, to have to warn their meetings.
Well, I thought we agreed to that anyway. I thought
We did have this discussion. So what we are doing, Deborah, is on the homepage of the EDC website, we are featuring a link to Startup Woodstock.
Okay.
And so it's right there.
Right.
I just think it needs to, when I'm coming forward with an idea, I'd like to see that as one of my options, because I think it's significant. I may not fit over here, and that may be the way I want to go. I'm saying me as a random person, not me, Deb Green.
That channel is going away on January, whatever the deadline is, Larry, January 8th or something like that. It's a one-time program. It's not a recurring program.
Really? Oh, I thought you were going to continue it.
Well, someone might apply for another grant. We funded, we contributed $10,000. Other people have contributed $20,000. And we decided, so it's really,
all right.
I understand your point, but I think actually, anyway, I understand
your point. All right. Larry, I'd love to have a conversation with you to understand it further, because I think it's really significant. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully it is something that will recur. Okay. Are there any other, we've gone through our agenda. Any other comments? No, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Wait, actually, just sorry, one last clarifying question. So 8 o'clock, have we confirmed a time for the special meeting next week? Are we on for 8?
Not next week, December 15th.
Excuse me, 2 weeks.
December 15th.
8
p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Like Red Bull or something.
Will there be pizza?
Yes.
Will there be caffeine, something?
Yes.
Great. I will be there in person if there's pizza.
And John, I think it's important to point out that the 8 o'clock time is something that we picked because that's been proven to be shown to be the best available time for these folks.
I want to say that the people from that community have told us that's when they want to meet.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
I'm old.
All right.
Okay.
Patrick, Joe.
Second.
Joe made the motion. Patrick seconded it, just for the record. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
guys.
everybody. Have a great
Great
night.
discussion.
Really appreciate it.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Hi,
Yeah,
guys.
thanks, everybody.
Great work. Needs to return to the mothership.